Stop. Before you buy your next game or upgrade your PC or celebrate that award-winning indie title, there's something the gaming industry isn't telling you, and it's happening right now behind closed doors in development studios that you might trust. Because what if I told you that the future of gaming is being decided by algorithms and not artists, that your wallet is being drained by something that has nothing to do with the games that you actually love, and that gamers themselves are the only ones who can stop what's coming next? By the end of this video, you're going to understand why companies are making moves they never make publicly, why your gaming rig just got 1,000% more expensive, and the one controversial truth that could determine whether human creativity survives in gaming. This video started off as a response to the story going around that Halo Studios has appointed somebody that has like their own AI firm, and generative AI is being used in Halo's next games. And as I was coming up with the script, it just kept spiraling more and more. I was actually looking at upgrading my own PC. I wanted to get a new GPU, and it's gone up $300 since early December. And with the Game Awards happening and the Indie Game Awards taking away an award for a game that used generative AI, this video just kind of spiraled into something bigger. If you agree with what I'm saying in this video, make sure you leave a like. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about the whole AI fiasco that's overtaking gaming. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether you don't care as long as games are being made faster. I read all the comments and I try to reply to all of them. And make sure you sub if you enjoy videos like this. So let's dive in. AI in gaming has probably created the most polarized debate since, I would say, the console wars. But unlike arguing about Xbox and PlayStation, this isn't really about preference or games on those consoles. It's about the soul of game development itself. There's definitely a pro AI side of things. They talk about efficiency, how AI can speed up tedious tasks and clean up motion capture data, generate placeholder assets. There's a cost reduction, how smaller studios can achieve AAA production without actually having a AAA budget. Machine learning can create dynamic experiences, better NPCs, procedural generated content that will adapt to players. And others say that AI is just here to stay and that you need to get over it because resisting it is just futile. The other side says that there's massive job displacement with artists and writers and designers being replaced by people just writing prompts and algorithms. I think that it also will create this sameness around games where everything is based on existing work and there's no real creative flow to it. There's ethical concerns, such as draining data to use copyrighted material and you don't have permission or even compensate those artists. And I think that another big point is that AI-generated content often lacks intentionality and the emotional connection that other humans have with art that's created by another human. And now, I think this is the part that a lot of people don't want to admit because we live in a world where everything is the extreme. You're either one side or the other, and there's no nuance, there's no discussion. But I think both sides are partially right and are both lying about something very crucial. The industry wants you to believe that artificial intelligence is just a tool like Photoshop or anything else like that. But what they fail to realize is that Photoshop never completely replaced an artist. Photoshop was a tool that helped human creativity, and what we're seeing now is just different. We've all heard of companies hiring AI specialists to replace entire departments. It's not augmenting, it's replacing. And like I said before, this video started as just a response to what was happening at Halo Studios, where they hired a new chief of staff, and I guess on paper, she is qualified. She's got, I think, over a decade at Microsoft in gaming, safety, and trust, and worked at Twitch, but this is what is making people nervous. She also founded a consulting AI firm, which specializes in integrating AI workflows for game development. People started noticing job listings for AI engineers, machine learning across all major franchises from Microsoft, from Halo to Forza and Gears of War. Now, before, there was a lot of backlash with this story, and a lot of people just using quotes to generate clicks without actually telling the full story. In fact, we've had this song and dance before. where Jez Corden said that Halo is using AI for emails and stuff like that. But why hire a new chief of staff who runs an AI consulting company if you're only going to use AI for emails? Why do multiple devs need generative AI certifications for administrative tasks? It's been said that Microsoft has invested $80 billion in AI infrastructure. They've built hundreds of data centers specifically for artificial intelligence. Some people have said that the closure of studios for Xbox was because they were redirecting resources towards the AI investment. And quite honestly, when a company is investing that much money into something, it's not because it's going to sit there idle for years and years and decades. It's going to get used. And I think that Halo might just be the beginning of that. We're going to shift over to Clair Obscur Expedition 33 after it celebrated winning both Game of the Year and Debut Game at the Indie Game Awards, when days later, both of those awards were stripped away. The game's producer confirmed what players had already suspected and discovered, that they used generative AI during development. Screenshots showed AI-generated posters with just messed up text in the game's world, and they said that they were supposed to be placeholders, but they somehow slipped through QA and they were in the final product. The Indie Game Awards has a zero-tolerance policy on generative AI. The rules explicitly state that any game that's using AI in development is strictly ineligible for nominations. They said when Sandfall submitted the game for consideration, they agreed that no generative AI was used, and that turned out to be complicated. So, Clair Obscur is, I would say, like 99.9% human-created. We're not talking about an AI slop game that was entirely generated by Grok. We're talking about a small team that was using AI for temporary placeholder textures that were replaced with human-made assets, except for the ones they forgot to replace. But the Indie Game Awards, they don't care about proportion. A single AI-generated poster was enough to disqualify an otherwise handcrafted game. But I think we need to be brutally honest here, because I don't think anybody really wants to say this part out loud, and that's that almost every modern game is using some form of AI and has for years. It's just how you define it. AI pathfinding for enemies, that's artificial intelligence. Procedural generation algorithms, that's AI. Animation blending systems with machine learning, AI. Games that use enemy behavior that will adapt to player patterns, AI. But those aren't the problem. The problem is the generative AI, the kind that creates art and writes dialogue and generates content that would otherwise require human creativity and labor. The gaming industry is being forced to draw arbitrary lines. Is using AI for grammar checking okay? What about spell check? What about Photoshop's generative fill? Are they using ChatGPT to brainstorm ideas, but then letting a human fully develop them? And I think that Clair Obscur got caught in this definitional gray zone. They used the tool briefly, discarded most of it, but still faced career-defining consequences. And while the industry is debating the ethics of AI in game development, something more insidious is happening right now to your wallet, and it has literally nothing to do with games themselves. At the end of this year, RAM prices have exploded. I've seen increases in percentage from 94% to as much as 600% in certain markets, and after sale on eBay for DDR5. People started pivoting to DDR4, and now those prices are also skyrocketing. GPU prices, which were actually starting to normalize again after crypto and pandemic shortages are being threatened again. Nvidia is reportedly going to cut gaming GPU production by up to 40% in 2026 just due to VRAM supply issues. And that's all because of AI data centers. Each one of these centers can contain tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of GPUs. And once you start doing the math between the GPU and the VRAM, the numbers become staggering. And this has left memory manufacturers like Samsung to come to a decision when making RAM, and that's either making consumer RAM for regular people and have decent profit margins, or pivot to high bandwidth memory for AI servers and get massive guaranteed money. And the thing is, a lot of these manufacturers have chose AI. And because of all this, the memory for a new PC accounts for 18% of that PC's costs, which is double what it was in 2024. And the experts are predicting that AI will consume 20% of total DRAM production in 2026, and that could increase even further. And because of all this, there are going to be shortages that are expected to last for years. And these shortages and prices are not because of gamers, it's because these AI companies need to train their models, because Microsoft needs to run Copilot in the cloud, or Google needs to serve Gemini to all these people. And none of this is really going to change, because companies don't change because of outrage. They change because of money. Doesn't matter how many people are complaining on Twitter or whatever, or how many videos like this one get made. If their bottom line isn't hurting, if people are still buying their stuff, it's not gonna make a difference. Like with the Halo controversy, Microsoft doesn't care. It's still gonna move forward with AI integration. Clair Obscur lost a couple awards, doesn't matter. It still sold incredibly well and still won 9 awards at the Game Awards. The fact that you can't afford new RAM, nobody cares, because memory manufacturers are going to make record profits going forward. Nothing is going to change, because nothing has to change. And gamers talk all the time about voting with their wallets, but the problem is they just keep buying the games they claim to oppose. When a game is getting review bombed for using AI, it's still going to sell millions of copies. When a company announces layoffs to focus on AI efficiency, their stock prices go up. When your hardware prices are skyrocketing, people will complain online, but people are still going to have to buy those components because they either need or want them. And I think that a lot of these companies are using FOMO to get people to invest in their games or hardware. I think that because you're boycotting Halo because it's going to have AI, you're going to cave when all your friends are playing it, or you can't afford RAM at prices, you're eventually going to buy it because you're going to need it for work or school or the game that you've been waiting for. And the only way that companies are ever going to course correct is if there's meaningful financial consequence, not Twitter threads or post on Reddit, or again, a video like this talking about the disappointment. There needs to be actual revenue loss that these higher ups will notice during their earnings calls. And what does that really mean? Not buying games from studios openly replacing artists with AI, not purchasing hardware at insane rates, not pre-ordering games from companies with AI first development pipelines, and actually following through instead of caving at launch. But most gamers won't do this. The market knows that, the devs know it, and that's exactly why nothing is going to fundamentally change, which kind of sucks. Again, while I was writing this out, I kept coming back and forth to the conclusion that this all stinks, but is anything ever really going to change? Again, I was looking at upgrading my GPU, and I still want to. I am part of the problem. Really, I think there's 3 futures that we're going to eventually come to. And that's just AI is going to win, and it's going to be used across all studios, and everything is going to be the exact same. The second one is that the government actually is going to intervene with regulations on AI generated content, but I don't think that's actually going to happen either. And the third future is that consumers will just follow through on boycotts and sales will plummet. But again, I don't really see that happening either. So just to recap, the AI debate in gaming isn't really about whether the technology side of things is good or bad. It's about who gets to create the art and entertainment that will define our future and culture. Every time a studio replaces an actual artist with AI, they're making a statement that creativity is a commodity that we can use with machines, that your hobby is less important. And I think that we were all really unprepared for what AI was going to do to gaming, while all of us are just distracted about arguing whether using AI for placeholders really counts as AI usage. Companies are going to continue to use AI in game development because it saves money. These hardware manufacturers are going to continue to prioritize AI data centers because it makes money. And I think gamers are going to continue to buy games and hardware despite these ethical concerns because that's what's always happened. This industry is betting that your love of playing games will always trump your actual principles. That your desire to play the next Halo game or the next big RPG, the next multiplayer game that comes out will override any concerns about how it was made or what it costs. And the question isn't whether AI will change gaming, because it already has. The question is whether gamers will change their behavior in response. And based on previous controversies, from loot boxes to crunch culture and microtransactions, that answer is probably no. And that's just me looking back and seeing history repeats itself. But maybe those patterns can be broken, and I could be proven wrong. That's going to do it for the video, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like down below. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace!